All right, so welcome to our next video lecture. So we just finished photosynthesis and now we're going into cellular respiration. It's like the opposite of photosynthesis. So in photosynthesis, plants use sunlight, chloroplasts to make glucose sugar. Well, it's going to be the opposite. This is where we're going to break down glucose sugar to create ATP energy. That's going to be done mostly by the mitochondria. So glucose can be broken down through cellular respiration to make ATP energy that the cells can use as a direct source of energy. All right, so what is cellular respiration? It's a process by which cells break down the sugar glucose. And when they break it down, they keep chopping it up to smaller and smaller. It's releasing energy. And it's producing energy in the form of ATP. Remember, it happens in the mitochondria. That's the organelle of eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells are the kind of cells that you have in your body. They have a true nucleus. Prokaryotic cells are things like bacteria that don't have a nucleus. Now, there's two types. One type of respiration requires oxygen. That's aerobic respiration. And there's one that doesn't require oxygen, and that's anaerobic. All right, so this is releasing energy from glucose so it can be used by cells for growth, for movement, for active transport, all kinds of things that the cells need energy for. So that's how cells make energy, ATP energy from glucose sugar. All right, so now the summary equation for cellular respiration. Well, if you remember the equation from photosynthesis, this is going to be easy. All right, so glucose, sugar, is broken down into carbon dioxide and water. And most importantly, we make the energy molecule ATP. So we chop up glucose to give us ATP energy that our cells can use. All right, so if you remember photosynthesis formula, the stuff here on the right, they were on the left. And these things on the left, they were on the right. So it was just flip flopped. So now remember, plants needed CO2 and water and light energy to make glucose and oxygen. Well, now it's the opposite. Now we're getting the glucose sugar through the food we eat, plus we breathe in oxygen gas. We're going to breathe out CO2. This is why we breathe out CO2 because cellular respiration. We also make 6 water molecules, but most importantly, we make 36 to 38 ATP molecules for every glucose. All right, so once again, glucose plus oxygen, food plus oxygen that we breathe out CO2. We make water in this process in our cells, but most importantly, we make around 38 ATPs. All right, real quick, just like the last slide says, it's the opposite. Here's photosynthesis. Plants need carbon dioxide from the air, water from the ground, plus sunlight, and they use that to make glucose sugar, and they also release oxygen gas into the air. Cellular respiration is the opposite. Now we're going to eat our food. We're going to digest our food and turn it into glucose. We're going to breathe in oxygen gas from the air. And then what we're going to make in cellular respiration are products, 6 carbon dioxides, 6 water molecules, remember, 36 to 38 ATPs. All right, so if you remember in photosynthesis, there were two reactions, the light dependent reaction and the light independent slash Calvin cycle. Cellular respiration, we're going to have 4 separate steps. Now, your textbook probably says 3 because most people in most books put 2 and 3, they put them together. I separate them. So you're going to need to know, where do these reactions occur and what do they create? What are their products? So the first one's glycolysis. It occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell, so it's not within the mitochondria, it's not within an organelle. It's just in the fluid inside the cell, and that's where glucose comes in. And glucose is going to get snapped into 2 molecules of pyruvate. So it literally gets broken in half into 2 molecules of pyruvate. So this is the whole thing. Then the pyruvate's going to enter pyruvate conversion or pyruvate oxidation. And in this step, pyruvate is going to be broken down further into what's called acetyl CoA. Then it's acetyl CoA that's going to move into the Krebs slash citric acid cycle. It's going to get broken down further. We're going to get some more ATP. We also get these electron carriers. Remember last time we had NADPH? Well, now the electron carriers are NADH and also FADH2. So we're going through these steps to make a little bit of ATP, but most importantly, we're making these electron carriers. They're going to be used here. It says oxidative phosphorylation. We call it the electron transport chain. So all these electrons are going to be used here at the very end, and that's where we're going to get the vast majority of our ATPs, around 32 to 34 ATPs in the electron transport chain. All right, so now I'm going to go a little more in depth about what happens in each of these 4 steps of cellular respiration. Step one, glycolysis. Where does it occur? Be good to have some notes on this stuff because you might have an open note mini test. Happens in the cytoplasm. So this is not within an organelle. It's just in the fluid within the cell. And glycolysis literally means sugar breaking. And that's what it's doing here. Here's the sugar glucose, which we broke down. We turned our food, we broke down the food we eat into glucose. And then glucose gets broken in half into two molecules of pyruvate. So the 6-carbon glucose, remember it's C6H12O6, it gets snapped in half into two 3-carbon molecules of pyruvate or pyruvic acid. So we broke it down. And by doing that, we get some energy. We're going to get two of the electron carriers because we get one from this, one from each pyruvate, two of the electron carriers, NADH. Boom, that's one of the products. We're also going to get, see how it's 4 ATPs? We get 2 ATPs here, we get 2 ATPs here, but it cost us 2 ATPs at the beginning. So we spent 2 ATPs to make 4. So we really only had a gain of 2 ATPs because we had to burn 2 to make 4. And like I said, we also get 2 of the electron carriers, NADH. Those are our products. 2 ATPs, 2 NADHs, 2 pyruvates. And the pyruvates are going to be converted into acetyl-CoA in the next reaction. All right, now on to step 2, pyruvate conversion or pyruvate oxidation. Remember step 1, glucose went in and glucose got snapped into 2 molecules of pyruvate. By breaking down glucose, we got 2 molecules of the electron carrier NADH, and we made a net total of 2 ATPs. Well, now we got this pyruvate. And a lot of textbooks don't count this step because no ATP is created here. So pyruvate goes in and it's going to get converted into acetyl-CoA. Now you can see pyruvate here has 1, 2, 3 carbons in it, and acetyl-CoA over here only has 2. Where'd that carbon go? Well, this is where we lost. We lost a carbon because we created CO2. We made 2 CO2s here. Remember, we're going to make 6, so we got 4 more to make. But more importantly, 2 of the electron carriers NADH are created. All right, so here's what it is. So now the location, now we're in the mitochondria. So we're no longer in the cytoplasm. The location, it's in the mitochondria. And it's called the matrix, which just kind of means the middle of the mitochondria. Our reactants, 2 molecules of pyruvate, and they're going to get converted. They're going to make this. These are our products. 2 molecules of acetyl-CoA. Those are going to be used in the Krebs cycle. 2 electron carriers, NADH, and 2 CO. All right, on to step 3. Remember step 1, glycolysis. Glucose, sugar, got snapped into 2 molecules of pyruvate. In the process, we made 2 molecules of NADH, the electron carrier, plus 2 ATPs. Pyruvate conversion. Pyruvate got converted into acetyl-CoA. In that, we made no ATPs, but we did get 2 molecules of CO2. That's what we breathe out. And we also made 2 of the electron carriers, NADH. And also remember, pyruvate was converted to acetyl-CoA. So now it's the acetyl-CoA that's going to go into the Krebs/citric acid cycle. You're not going to need to know all this, but acetyl-CoA bonds with oxaloacetate to form citrate or citric acid. And then these molecules keep getting broken down as they go along through this cycle. But here's the most important thing. Where does it occur? Once again, the mitochondria matrix. Reactants, what does it need? It needs 2 acetyl-CoAs. Remember, 1 glucose got turned into 2 pyruvates, then got turned into 2 acetyl-CoAs. All right, so what do we get? As these molecules get broken down, we're going to get 3 NADHs, electron carriers, 3 per acetyl-CoA. But remember, we have 2 of them, so we're really going to make 6. We're also going to make a total of 2. So 1 FADH2 per acetyl-CoA. But since we have 2 of them, we're going to get 2 FADH2s. And with the 2 acetyl-CoAs, we're going to make 2 ATPs. All right, so here it is. We're going to make 6 NADHs, 3 per every acetyl-CoAs, but we have 2 of them. 2 of the electron carrier, FADH2. We're going to make, I didn't point it out, but we do release 4 carbon dioxides. So now we're up to 6 carbon dioxides. We're done. Because remember, it's always 6. 6 CO2s plus 6 H2Os. And we make a whopping 2 ATPs. So we've now made 4 ATPs, 2 in glycolysis, and now 2 in the Krebs/citric acid cycle. So it's in the mitochondria matrix. Here's what it needs, acetyl-CoAs, and here are all of its products. All right, so now the final step of cellular respiration, the electron transport chain. Where does it occur? in the inner mitochondrial membrane, or the inner membrane within a mitochondria. So here you can see a mitochondria out here. There's an outer membrane right there, but then you can also see inside there's an inner membrane right there. So it's going to happen right there between right on the inner membrane of the mitochondria. All right, so here it is. What do we need? We need the electrons from NADH and FADH2. This is very similar to the light dependent reaction of photosynthesis, just kind of like in reverse. So NADH and FADH2 are going to donate electrons to this electron transport chain. And just like in the light dependent reaction of photosynthesis, the energy from these electrons are used to pump hydrogen ions outside of the inner membrane. So be pumping it outside into this space right there. So it's pumping these hydrogen ions outside of the inner membrane. This is going to cause a concentration gradient. We're going to have a high concentration of hydrogen outside the membrane, and we're going to have a low concentration inside the membrane. If we remember from cell transport, things like to go from high to low concentration. So these movement of hydrogen ions back inside of the membrane through a protein called ATP synthase, an enzyme, that movement is going to be used to convert ADP, the dead battery, and turn it into ATP, the charged battery. And this is also where at the end of this chain, these electrons, they need somewhere to go. Where are they going to go? Well, this is where oxygen comes into play. Oxygen molecules are going to grab electrons, plus they're going to grab some of these hydrogen ions to form water. So this is where we get the 6H2Os. So oxygen serves as what's called the final electron acceptor. It hangs out till the end of the chain. These electrons move down the chain, and eventually they got to go somewhere. We can have a pile of electrons over here. That's where oxygen. That's why we got to breathe oxygen. Oxygen says, thank you. I'll take those electrons. I'll grab a couple hydrogens, and now I'm H2O. I'm water. All right, so here's what we need. We need NADH, the electrons from NADH, FADH2. This is also where we're going to use those 6 oxygens, or O2. And what do we make? We make somewhere between 32 and 34 ATPs, so way more than glycolysis, way more than the Krebs cycle. And this is also where we make the 6 water molecules. So that's the final products of the electron transport chain, 32 to 34 ATPs, and this is where the 6 water molecules are formed. All right, looks like we've gone about 12 and a half minutes, longer than I wanted, but that's not very long for a lecture. All right, last slide. Aerobic versus anaerobic respiration. I'm going to give you just what you're going to need to know. So aerobic, it's in the mitochondria. That's what I've just been going over this whole thing. It was the glycolysis plus the pyruvate conversion, Krebs cycle, electron transport chain. All that together is aerobic respiration. And here's what you need to know about aerobic. It makes a lot of ATP, 36 to 38 ATP per every glucose. Also, oxygen is required. Oxygen is used in aerobic respiration. Now, the opposite of that is anaerobic respiration. This is going to occur in the cytoplasm, not the mitochondria. Its products, it's only going to make a whopping 2 ATPs. And in this one, oxygen is not used. So some organisms perform anaerobic exclusively. That's all they do, like bacteria. They don't do aerobic, they do anaerobic. We do both. If we're working out really, really hard and we can't get enough oxygen, like if you're running a 200-yard dash and you're out of breath, you don't get enough oxygen, your body is turning anaerobic. And when you're doing that, you're not using oxygen anymore. You're still producing ATP, but not nearly as much as with aerobic respiration. All right, so there's the two differences, the two main differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. All right, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you took some good notes, and I'll see you next time. All right, so it looks like this lecture went about 11 minutes long. You're probably like, oh, it's too long. You know what they call that in college? Just getting started, just getting warmed up. We got another hour of lecture, but 11 minutes. All right, I try to keep them under 10, but